If I have the context on this correctly, a member of the Pod Saves America podcast is interviewing, this isn't on Pod Saves, but it's some other project, is interviewing a member of the LA City Council.
Great, that's important, but are you focused on what will ultimately make California affordable for the people in your district?
Well, I am. By law, I really have no jurisdiction anymore because it's an ED1, right? But we still, as a team, got together with the developer, the high school across the street, other stakeholders, and instead of building something that was potentially 6 stories, we got it down to 3 stories. And we also got the developer to also work with us to make sure that it helps the families of the area. We also said, you know, instead of a ton of office space, we do want you to also incorporate a few more parking lots and EV chargers. So yeah, I mean, there's some developers that have built housing where it looks like a big...
Look at this. He's like in shock. There are so many city councilmen who are exactly like this, but they usually don't go on to interviews and just talk about it openly. I can't understand what she's saying. For some reason, she's bragging. Okay, so first of all, she says she has no jurisdiction over the construction project. But then she talked to the developers and got them to cut the building size in half, added more parking spots and EV chargers. And she's boasting about it. Do you have any idea how bad the housing crisis is in Los Angeles? It's a city with infinite land. It's infinite sprawl in all directions. And like 90% of it is single family housing. Unbelievable. Widest goddamn city on earth. That's probably not true. It's got to be Tokyo, right? Tokyo's huge. More absurd statements from the full thing. Yeah, I want to see it. I want to see it. This woman is like the supervillain behind... Oh, it is on Pod Saves America. I thought it was on like a secondary podcast. She's like a supervillain. It's crazy. I want to hear her justify it. I want to hear her explain.
Hey, everybody. California, we have the 4th largest economy in the world. We also have a massive affordability crisis. Most Democrats agree that the state needs to build a lot more housing. But when you start talking about where and how, it gets tricky. A new state bill called SB 79 is being hotly debated. It would override local zoning rules to allow for more housing to be built near transit stops and bus stops.
There should, flat out, I am like so red-pilled on this. There should just not be local zoning. Like, I don't think city council members should even have a say in it. Why the city council members having the authority to override broader projects? You're a city council member, okay? Go shine somebody's shoe or something. Jesus Christ. Like, what? Genuinely, why? They don't get to do that for anything else. They don't get to do that for like broader transit projects. They don't get to do that for like any other economic activity taking place. Why the do they get to decide for housing? What do you even have to say to spin less storied housing is a good thing? Because oftentimes, and this is me being charitable, because I think oftentimes the real thing that happens is that developers collude with council members to keep the supply of housing low so that they can continue to make very, very, very low risk, high reward housing projects. Because building a ton of housing might make you a bunch of money in the long run, or it could fall flat if interest dries up and you just have to sit in those properties. But if you're only drip feeding property into the city, they might prefer like a guaranteed high ratio of profit, but slower, you know? But even considering that, there's the social factor that the only people who show up to the city meetings where they discuss these zoning projects are 85-year-olds, people who will die tomorrow. But they want to make sure the thing written on their tombstones is, don't put a big apartment building full of poor blacks next to my family home. It's just HOA shit over and over and over again.
Supporters say it's key to building more, bringing down rent and boosting public transit and cutting emissions. They call themselves YIMBYs, or Yes in My Backyard. Critics, including LA Mayor Karen Bass, warn it could undermine local control, push people out of their homes, and strain roads and infrastructure. Here to hash it out, we have the lead author of the bill.
Fuck Karen Bass, dude. What the fuck is this? I support the intent to accelerate housing development statewide, but this bill risks unintended consequences for LA. 1.2 million views. I bet you this shit got 7 likes.
Out of their homes and strain roads and infrastructure. Here to hash it out, we have the lead author of the bill, Senator Scott Wiener. And we have LA City Council member Imelda Padilla, who recently voted with the majority of LA City Council to oppose the bill, a resolution that the mayor signed. First of all, thank you both for being here. I really appreciate it. We think it's important to have a space to have debates, congenial, even where we have disagreements in this big progressive tent. So I really appreciate it. I cleared this with both of you, but I just want to note that I'm gonna call you Imelda and Scott rather than your formal titles, just because it gets exhausting. Senator Weiner, Scott, what is SB 79 designed to do, and why is it needed?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me, and hello, council member. Big picture in California, we have a massive housing shortage. For the last 50 plus years, our state has made it progressively harder until about a decade ago to build any kind of housing. And so we have a massive housing shortage. In terms of number of homes per capita, the ratio of homes to people, we're the second lowest state in the country in terms of the homes that we need. So we need to build more.
I've talked about this before, but you guys are aware that the next time the census is conducted and the apportionment of congressional seats for the population of each state is reassessed, Texas and Florida are going to pick up like 6 seats between them, and California and New York are going to lose like 5. And that's all because in Florida and in Texas, they build new houses so more people can move there. And in California and in New York, they don't.
And we talk a lot about where we don't want to build in terms of in the highest severity wildfire areas. And some people don't want to build in the coastal areas. It's a lot of talk about don't build here, don't build there. But the question is, where do we want to build? And if you think about that, putting more housing right around our highest quality public transit stops, trains, subways, rapid bus service makes enormous sense in improving affordability and availability of housing, strengthening our transit systems, lowering traffic congestion, and lowering carbon emissions. So SB 79 authorizes more housing, multi-unit housing in the half-mile area around our highest quality public transit stops. Not any old bus stop. It has to be very high quality transit.
Councilmember Padilla, that sounds good to me.
Yeah,
that sounds great. We need that. California has a housing crisis.
God, it makes and thank God I'm sexist too, because it really makes her easier to hate with the horn-rimmed glasses. Am I right, fellas? Really tells you beforehand without even knowing their positions.
Why did you and so many members of the city council come out against it?
Well, I gotta say there's about 3 different things related to why I was on the side to oppose this bill. One is when Sacramento directs local jurisdictions to take on things that are unfunded mandates, it's never a good thing. But the 2 that are more personal to me and more seen as I do my work as a council member is that I think SB 79 operates from 2 assumptions that are actually pretty false. It is false to assume that there is local leaders that are not interested in building the housing and that we're not trying to work on it. And I think
that's true. That's true. Look at Los Angeles. Look at how few new developments there are. That's true. That's completely true. That's objectively true.
City of Los Angeles is a city that specifically has been showing that with a lot of the work that we've been doing with our CHIP program, the Citywide Housing Incentive Program ordinance. So to assume that we're not trying and then making an unfunded mandate is, in my opinion, very irresponsible. And the second thing, the most important thing to me, because I do represent an area where there's a lot of potential and we are building and we are engaging, is that there's this assumption that developers, when given a leeway, are going to come into a community and build something that addresses all of our social ills. When you give developers freedom, they build to make the best bang for their buck. And for myself, as
yeah, no shit. As in more properties.
Someone who has, gone above and beyond with engaging with developers, even when I don't even have that much jurisdiction. For example, the Executive Directive 1 that our mayor put together, it stripped away everything from the council members from being able to engage, so to speak, so that it can be done in a much faster way. But, I still went and talked to the developer and made sure that they didn't just build this gigantic thing near transit without remembering that at the end of the day, when you build high density, quality of life issues should leave that conversation. What do I mean by that?
What? Yeah, what the do you mean by that? What? You don't want to build high density around a transit hub like a metro stop?
I like to talk to folks about
I'm sorry about the noise, guys. I can't do anything about it.
importance of our multi-unit dwellings being built to incorporate laundry and washer in every unit. I remind them that these are children who are not going to have a front yard or a backyard. So what are you doing to incorporate some green space? You're going to have seniors.
No, you don't. Oh, no. Not every house needs a fronted backyard, you Angelino. Oh my God. That's what parks are for. You live in Los Angeles. It's like 14 million people across the metropolitan area. Not everybody gets a front and backyard.
That don't want to just stay indoors. So what are you doing to create a space for them to also be social and, be able to sit, enjoy some shade in the hot LA sun and, be able to people watch? Developers don't come in with that mentality. Developers come in with the mentality of, this is how much money is available.
You decide where the parks are. Developers don't place the parks down. The parks are zoned for by the city. You have a Parks and Recreation department.
How do I build as much as I can? Because in the long term, they're going to make the money. But we also have to remember that they're going to have neighbors, and neighbors should be able to engage. But again, I go back to my first assumption. It's irresponsible to assume that we're not trying. And SB 79 pushes that assumption.
Honestly, the vibe that I get from her is not that she's a pawn of the developers, but that she's genuinely really stupid. And she's lived in a bubble. The only people she's ever heard from are like concerned grandparents who don't want the aforementioned poor blacks living nearby. And she actually thinks she's doing a good thing. She thinks she's doing a social justice.
So, Scott, what's your response to those objections?
Sure. So first of all, before I was in the state Senate, I was a local elected official. I was a member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, which in San Francisco is essentially our city council. And before that, I was a neighborhood association president. So I am a big believer that in local participation and engagement and local decision making, which far more often than not, it's better to make decisions at the local level. But there are times when the state has to step in when you have an issue of statewide concern. We don't let school districts, make whatever decision they want about the number of days a year that they educate kids or whether they teach math or whether they teach history. We have standards. And until about 10 years ago, California had a system of almost total local control on housing. And it drove the car into the ditch. And we generated this massive housing shortage because, and I know this as a former local elected official, the pressure that you can get from small groups of people not to allow something to be built is tremendous. And cities have a race to the bottom sometimes. My neighbors aren't building housing, I don't want to. So the state stepped in, not just this bill, but a series of laws to create statewide standards so that cities were doing their fair share and actually building housing. And it's
insane that we don't already do this. Like, we do this, there's so much other civic infrastructure that we have meaningful state or nationwide standards for. When it comes to stuff like electrical grid and sewer system development, when it comes to transportation, when it comes to road layouts and like police and fire services, there's so much infrastructure where we're like, no. Like, look, cities can have some decision making over where it's placed or whatever, right? Like, a city can choose to put the fire department here or there or whatever, but a state would not allow a city of 20,000 people to not have a fire department. If they were stupid enough to try, you can't not have a sewage system. Like, you just have to. Sorry. You can figure out how to build it. You need it, though. But for housing, which is the bedrock of all of this, the people who live there, which is why we build infrastructure in the first place, for some reason, we allow every single individual agent affected by the potential housing construction to pitch up and complain. Why?
It's had a real effect. We're seeing cities zone for more homes and issuing permits more quickly. And I want to be clear, LA's done some good work around housing, so has San Francisco. But this is not about criticizing It's about acknowledging that we need more housing, and putting more housing near the best public transportation is one of the smartest things we can do for housing, transit, and climate action. That's what this is about.
So, Imelda, I hear you saying that it's wrong for the state to assume that local leaders don't want to build more housing. And
All
I
evidence
believe,
to
I
the
take that at face
contrary.
value. I believe that members of the council understand the importance of building more housing. And yet, LA has a housing element that was because of a state mandate, right? LA is supposed to build 456,000 units of housing, I believe, between 2021 and 2029. We're currently only on track to hit maybe a third of that.
Which is still way the fuck too low. Again, LA County has like what, 14, 15 million people in it? So what is that then? That's like a 1/30th increase, like a 3 or 4% increase in residences over the course of a decade?
Right. I think we've issued far fewer permits than necessary to hit that goal. Your colleague, Nithya Raman, who's my council member, made this point in this debate, which is that the city hasn't really done enough to be trusted to do this on its own, that it actually needs a push from the state, given the scale of the crisis. And I'm wondering what your response is to that and why you think LA hasn't kept up with the housing element.
Well, I think Councilwoman Nithya Raman should speak for herself, and she should speak for her own district. But for my district, we are working to increase the density. I have a district that has a lot of potential, right? We're building the East Valley Van Nuys light rail corridor. We're improving the G line, and we're also talking about the future of the Sepulveda Pass. And simultaneously, we do know that Metro has also committed to playing a role in increasing housing along their stops. But that is exactly
Diana, you're a tyrant.
Is that Los Angeles, like, I'm not here to defend the past, right? Here in Los Angeles, we are being much more intentional this generation to address the housing crisis, because as the senator mentioned, maybe in the past, there was definitely a group of elected leaders who felt that pressure from the very strong, organized, small groups. But I think we're in a new era here in Los Angeles where we don't need the pressure from Sacramento. We're being very intentional about working with our communities for the next round of our community plans to make sure that we do talk about density and where it goes. And it is.
Just let Masaigu Japan post what the fuck. You can't let a Japanese post about a housing development. I don't want to hear about it from people who have lived in Tokyo. Wow, that must be so great for you, being objectively better than us in every way. That's great. Oh my God, you keep rent costs down because you build so much new housing that the rent prices stay borderline stable relative to inflation and have even through the pandemic. Wow, you have the largest, most populous metropolitan area on Earth, rich and diverse and filled with culture, lots of parks and heritage in places that have existed for 1,000 years, built alongside high-density residences that people are clamoring to live in but are still cheap. That must be f***ing great for you!
In the theme of around transit-oriented development. But again, I know the senator mentioned that he's familiar with my job description because he used to have my job, but I don't know if he agrees with the second part of my argument with why I don't like SB 79 is that we can't assume developers are ready to just show up and give us the best development.
Yeah.
You're kidding me. Are you kidding me? If you zone and issue permits for construction in Los fucking Angeles, you're telling me that there aren't developers who are going to take advantage of that? Oh yeah, it's Los Angeles, it's a risky gamble.
Community needs. So to strip my role of being able to say this community is more families than a bunch of individuals that just need studios. We need things related to families. We need things related to the workforce that lives in the region, and really think that way is something that you completely lose because developers are not forced to have a conversation with the people who they're building units for. And I think that's a problem.
So, Senator, what is the response to that? And what have you been doing to address some of those questions about local influence as the bill has been moving through the legislature?
Absolutely. First of all, I will say...
I know a lot of people don't give a shit about this, but this is legitimately why we have a housing crisis in the United States. Like, we're looking at a personification of the crisis. That's what we're looking at right now. It's crazy. I don't think I or any of you have ever seen an interview that revealed this this so directly. Normally, like when people engage in NIMBYism from a political perspective, like they're already a politician, they're already a city council person, they're sneering at you and lying the entire time. This woman doesn't seem to be smart enough to understand like the implications of what she's saying.
Are important points that the council member raised, and I do want to address them. And I want to say, as it's moved through the process, we've made very significant revisions to the bill in response to feedback. We significantly strengthened the anti-displacement demolition controls in the bill. We increased the affordability requirement in the bill. And we also made much more robust what we call the local flexibility alternative, where cities can craft their own alternative plan that accomplishes the goal of the bill, but does it in their own way. For example, we want the density on one side of the station, but not the other side, for example. And so we've worked really hard based on tangible feedback from cities up and down the state, and we've taken that feedback seriously. I do want to stress that the bill does not override like all local requirements. If a city has a requirement that you have to, for example, I don't know if any cities have this requirement, but if a city has a requirement that you have to have in-unit laundry for units above a certain square footage or whatever the case may be, this would not override that.
Why the would it?
The bill.
So she just explicitly lied about that. Like she either invented the lie herself or was given a canned response.
Very clear that if a city has an affordability requirement higher than the baseline in the bill, then that applies. If a city requires certain impact fees to create...
This is the shit that I meant, by the way, when I said that one of the big black pills that you might take from the situation we're in right now is that modern society has gotten so complex and compartmentalized and bureaucratic that you can't have like a big history-changing figure in either direction. No one, left or right, can meaningfully like steer the course of history because everything's so cut up and segmented now, you know? And this is what I think of when I say shit like that, man. The fact that like, at least in America, because in China, they can build things. You're allowed to build things there. But in America, you can't have a bold infrastructure project across your state or your country because of shit like this.
In space in a neighborhood, or to build out the sidewalks, for example, the bill does not override those fees. So cities will still have significant latitude to adopt requirements to meet whatever needs they think are appropriate. What this bill does is it says you can't do what we've done for so long, which is to make massive, massive taxpayer investments that I support to build new transit, and then surround it with only single-family homes, so almost no one can actually walk to the transit station, and ridership is low. We've done it here in the Bay Area, in San Francisco, in the East Bay Peninsula. It's happened in LA, and it's not sustainable.
So, Imelda, what is your response to that? Like, it seems like they are trying to address some of these concerns.
It seems like your ass is getting knocked all across the room right now. Honestly, it seems like you're getting blown the fuck out. How do you feel about that?
Are there other changes you would like to see made? Do
you have any additional arguments now that the first sort of buffet course of arguments you've served up to the state senator have been devoured messily in front of you? Do you have anything in addition that you'd like to contribute?
Then garner your support for the bill? Do you ultimately view the bill as being a good goal that you could get behind if there were enough local constraints?
No, I don't think so, because like I said, generally, I'm not a fan of Sacramento making unfunded mandates. To tell local jurisdictions...
See, look, I'm telling you, and again, he's a pod saves guy, so he's not a based and radical leftist or whatever. He's on the right on this. He's on the abundance course. But from his perspective, it's like, why the fuck is this woman against empirically good things?
Without providing the funding to then build things out. Only puts us in a place where we have to think outside the box to potentially fund stuff.
Why would the state of California need to fund it when the developers are the ones building the housing? Like, you still have to build stuff like sidewalks and parks and stuff, but those fees are trivial compared to what you pay in road maintenance alone. There's a reason Sacramento's not paying for it. It's not like a highway project where it's all the city pitching in. Yeah, the shit the developers will build will be profitable. It will produce a tax base that will increase the revenue for the city.
I think back to the day when I saw all of my colleagues argue over this, and those who did not support the work that we did with our own planning department, the CHIP, were the most vocal. And then it became a total call out of, well, you're not building, that's why I support it. And it's like, well, you didn't do the work related to figuring out how we can do something local that addresses our housing crisis. So this is all very political. But philosophically, there's moments where I'm in a position where I'm told, hey, this council member is not supporting this land use decision. Will you back the NIMBYs instead of the YIMBYs, right? Myself, it's not a matter of the YIMBYs or the NIMBYs. I generally believe that a council member's number one job description, especially in the city of Los Angeles, is land use decisions. People get elected for the conversations that they have with folks about what they're going to do to
Again, just unfathomable to me why city council people are given authority over that. But
their neighborhood looking and growing the way that they want it
growing.
to. So, for example,
we want it to grow.
The state to say, here's your opportunity to build something that is potentially 7 stories high, when nothing around it is 7 stories.
Who the cares? Los Angeles is an ugly, squat, shitty little megatown. There is nothing beautiful there. The only things there that are of beauty are in the neighborhoods around those I grew up in. You're what, Van Nuys? There's no way. I don't give a shit, man. Jesus Christ. These people would shoot down building the Eiffel Tower because the rest of Paris is capped at 8 blocks or 8 stories. It's unbelievable. Who cares? Okay, so now you have a landmark. You have a sight line. Who gives a shit? Pull up Google Maps. Fine. You want to see? You want to see what Los Angeles 6th City Council District looks like? Sure. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at what we're preserving. Let me just see if I have my mental math correctly. I'm looking at a map of Los Angeles's districts. And I believe we're looking at this general area, right? Let me see if I can't find a specific like neighborhood. North Hollywood. Oh, that's right. My apologies, people. Oh, heaven forbid we disrupt the natural beauty of North Hollywood, that sun-scourged shithole. Jesus Christ. There we go. Oh, no. Let's appreciate the beauty. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, it's heavens to Betsy. You wouldn't want a 7-story apartment building. Oh God, look at this rickety South African poverty fence over here. Jesus Christ. North Hollywood. It's the hottest place in the world, believe it or not. Or at least you'll believe that when you're there. When you're on the street, like crossing the sidewalk in the sun, it feels like it's 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Every road is 18 lanes wide. There's nothing for you here. Death awaits you. When you look up, you will see vultures circling. Gotta protect the character of the neighborhood. Oh, look. Oh, these are some of the 3-story buildings that she's okay with. Well, they look great. They look fantastic. Let's go down one of these side roads. Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? I prefer this to single-family housing. There we go. Is this the mythical front and back lawn that I've heard? This is it's very efficient space use during a housing crisis. California set to lose like 4 seats in the next congressional redistricting. What are we spending our land use on? Well, in addition to the single-family home here in this extremely dense and highly populated city, what if we reserved 2/3 of the lot space for a driveway? Grass? Oh, grass can't grow in North Hollywood. What are you talking about? Look at this. This is North Hollywood. I don't know why going up past the Hollywood Hills, going north of the Hollywood Hills, increases the temperature by 20 degrees, but it does. 125,000 in 1970, 1.2 million now. Is this property right here 1.2 million? Did you just look that up? That wouldn't surprise me. You just looked up the property right there in the top left. Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah, 1.2 million. Yeah. Gotta preserve the character of the name. Is this a park? No, it's just a weirdly long dead grass stretch. You know what I love to see in my residential neighborhoods? 4-car wide, like, oh, look at this. Can't you just feel your skin blistering as you walk down this? Not even a sidewalk. This is the neighborhood she's talking about. North Hollywood. Wait till Vosh sees Florida. Yeah, but you know what they do in Florida, mother? You know what they do in Florida? They build houses. They build houses. That's why they're going to get Congress seats in the next redistricting. Oh, but let's not forget North Hollywood's famous shopping district. You know, I have a friend who lived in North Hollywood. You know how much North Hollywood sucks? They lived in an apartment block that was hidden behind a barbed wire fence. You got in via a card that let you in through a big pull-aside gate that let cars through. You go into your apartment building. The rent on that property was raised by $600 a month because 1 mile down the road, a shopping complex with a Trader Joe's opened. Not even enough cars to fill the road. What the f is wrong with this place? I have a villain for you to blame. It's not a joke. It's not an exaggeration. The reason that area is a blighted hellscape is because of the decisions made by people like this.
Because the state allows it, it's almost an insult to everyone who voted for the individual who they believe is going to help grow and clean and maintain their communities as they would like them to.
But see,
as they would like them to. Okay, we have to preserve the cultural heritage of that festering boil on Satan's asshole called North Hollywood, you know?
to me gets at the core of the issue. And first of all, I just want to say, I appreciate you coming on here because I am out there in favor of SB 79. You're on with the proponent of the bill. So I appreciate you coming and being willing to have this debate. And I really want to be fair to your point of view. But what I hear there is what you're saying is, well, there weren't 7-story buildings here in the past, so there can't be 7-story buildings here in the future. But that freezes California in a moment when there were far fewer people in this state. And
most of Los Angeles looks the exact same way that it did back in the 1970s. Genuinely. Like, and no exaggeration, if you took like land area percentage or whatever, you take a look at how did this house look 50 years ago? Unchanged. Except now they have Ring cameras on the door. Unchanged. It has been frozen in time, and it was not good to begin with.
Concern in what I'm hearing from you is there are legitimate issues that you're raising about what locals feel about the character of their neighborhood. I'm not saying that those aren't legitimate concerns, but it seems to lose the forest for the trees, which is we have an emergency. There's only a quarter, 20% of the number of affordable units as the number of people who need them. We are losing people to Texas. Right? They are making a claim that we are failing in California to build enough. Like, this is an emergency. The problem isn't that there are going to be buildings too high near transit stops. The problem is there is nowhere for people who want to come to California to live. It is pushing our entertainment business out. It is pushing young people out. This is an emergency. We should all be freaking out about
more, by the way, more and more, like even Hollywood, like movie studios do more and more business like away from California because it's just it's so difficult to run anything there. Everything's expensive. Yeah, they go to Vancouver, which is cheaper, though admittedly these days not by much. Also Georgia. I think Georgia's a popular one. New Netflix studio in New Jersey. Oh, a bunch in Texas.
how urgent it is to do anything humanly possible to build housing. And you're worried about whether or not there's a place for a few senior citizens to sit up.
I really do appreciate, by the way, the fact that he's upset about this, okay? I would actually say that he, and not just him, but like maybe the pod save atmosphere in general, is the example of what I would call the good liberal. In the same kind of sniding, condescending tone that a person of poor political disposition might refer to a person of color, I suppose. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. They clearly care about good outcomes. They care about good outcomes. Like, he's incredulous over this. And it's not as though liberalism can't do abundance. It's not as though liberals are incapable of building cities. Liberals built these cities. Ideologically, liberalism fueled the development of the entire post-industrial revolution Western world. Like, it's not as though it's not possible, you know? It's just the modern expression of it has grown so thick in the weeds, you know, so incapable of change and development that we're in the position we are now. And I appreciate the fact that rather than like doing the Matt Iglesias thing, right, and just turning into a smug contrarian who understands that everything's going wrong but doesn't have the moral courage to speak out and say why, who just wants to make a buck off of that contrarianism. I appreciate the fact that he cares. I do appreciate that.
A building that developers are trying to build. And I'm saying, great, that's important. But are you focused on what will ultimately make California affordable for the people in your district?
Well, I am.
Radicalizing moment for Pod Saves. The radicalizing moment for Pod Saves was when they had on the 4 Kamala Harris staffers after she lost the election. I swear to God, if there was a gun in the room at that moment, one of them would have put it in their mouth. That was the radicalization moment. Just these consultants and how out of touch, and they're young too, like barely older than me. Young consultants, completely out of touch. Just abysmal interview, you know?
And this is why I said, speak for yourself. And that's why I also said, we can't assume that the superhero here is the developer. So for example, under the emergency ordinance, I'm bringing a set of tiny homes into an underutilized Metrolink parking station. I didn't have to do any outreach, but I started a neighborhood watch, and I also had a
great. No, that's great. No, that's great. That's great. That's great. That's great.
Whole town hall related to addressing that component. And there's also an ED1 that's being built on Victory and Balboa. And going back to what you said, the neighbors didn't want it at all.
If you ever wondered how China can have a per capita GDP that is so much lower than America's, even after you factor in the easier construction due to lower wage costs, stuff like that. If you ever wonder how China can build these mega cities in just a few decades, whereas America is just stagnating and rotting and dying, despite being so much wealthier, this is why. This is exactly why. This level of incompetence would get you killed in a Chinese bureaucratic system. I'm not joking. No, genuinely, yeah. Like, this kind of behavior would be seen as, at best, malfeasance, and at worst, like some kind of treachery in, I think, a lot of governments throughout history.
They just didn't want the density. They wanted me to kill it. But by law, I really have no jurisdiction anymore because it's an ED1, right? But we still, as a team, got together with the developer, the high school across the street, other stakeholders, and instead of building something that was potentially 6 stories, we got it down to 3 stories. And we also got the developer to also work with us to make sure that it helps the families of the area. We also said, instead of a ton of office space, we do want you to also incorporate a few more parking lots and EV chargers. So
a few more parking lots in North Hollywood. Oh, how is it possible? You built a few new parking lots. How can you tell? It all already looks like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some developers that have built housing where it looks like a big, ugly cement box in the middle of the neighborhood. But what I want is something that people will be proud of, something that people will be excited to say, this is why I'm coming to Los Angeles, because you really think that all these young people that are seeking the Hollywood jobs that want to come to Los Angeles want to live in a cement-looking building?
Oh, yeah, dude. Oh, no. I'm sure the young people who go to LA looking for jobs are definitely taking residence in single-family housing that is only available for sale and is never rented in North Hollywood. Oh yeah, all the young Midwestern wannabe actors with stars in their eyes who travel across the states and buy a $1.2 million property. My hometown is ruined because of these people. It's been 50 years of these people with different forms, faces, and voices doing the same thing over and over again.
And find it to be dignified? I don't think so. But SB 79 creates a situation where the developer can actually do that. Build something that no one is excited about.
Scott, is there a part of this where people just need to accept that if we're going to build the amount of housing we need in the speed that we need it,
we just need to start some people, right? I mean, that's his Joker moment radicalization pipeline. He's okay. Listen, past a point, you do start to appreciate why Lenin just started, We just need to take the Chinese approach. We go in there with an army of construction men, and if somebody fills the concrete foundation, it's because they didn't get out of the way in time.
Some of these concerns can't be addressed. That we just got to move fast, and not everybody's going to like it.
No, Exactly. He's literally there. He starts out being like, I would love to hear the battle of the minds on this particular issue. And now he's like, do you ever think that like democracy doesn't work and only the tyranny of force can get us mixed development housing? Do you ever think he's like twirling a gun in his hand? He's like, do you ever think it's the only way that'll work?
I mean, no one's ever going to be totally happy, but I do want to say, like, the bill, in addition to the other things I mentioned, preserves cities' ability to have design standards. So if they don't want a cement building, I haven't seen any cement buildings, but if they don't want a cement building, they can have design standards that take that into account. I live in a neighborhood too. I've lived in my neighborhood for 28 years. I'm passionate about it, and so I'm, when the council members, constituents who are passionate about their neighborhood, I get that. I'm passionate about my neighborhood as well. What I've also learned over time, and I've seen this in San Francisco, when it comes to the housing disaster that we have in this state, San Francisco was the tip of the spear. We went over the cliff probably before any other community. And I've seen the carnage that has happened in terms of how many people have been pushed out of our city. Where I have had older gay men who are long-term HIV survivors say that if I lose my apartment, I have a choice of either moving back to Tennessee and having bad HIV care, or having good HIV care in San Francisco and being homeless, because there's no possibility for them.
San Francisco is another great example of this. If I could, hold on, let me pull up maps. San Francisco has been making an effort to improve things, so it's not entirely representative of the situation that they're in at this exact moment. But there are sections, again, San Francisco, this area, the Bay Area, should have a population of 500 million and should have a higher GDP than the rest of the United States combined. And I'm not joking. From a land use, climate, and development access perspective, this area could be another Tokyo. Like San Francisco could be a mega city that stretches out all the way to Stockton if they wanted to. Keep that border. But they're not. They're not. Where's that infamous strip? Is it the Sunset District that I'm thinking of? Again, this is an incomprehensibly wealthy city. The amount of money that flows into this city from its tax base per capita is obscene. And a lot of it looks like this. Don't get me wrong. The houses themselves are a little bit cute. But look at this. Like, per capita, there's more wealth here than Tokyo by a lot. This should be one of the world cities. This has more potential to be that for the West Coast than Los Angeles does, if it was managed properly. It's all like that, by the way. I think that was actually like a relatively nice chunk of houses. It's literally the whole, look at how wide these streets are. Like, is this a highway? Oh, well, that person didn't want to be on Google Maps. Hey, any San Franciscans who can tell me what like a nice walkable neighborhood is? I just want to drop into something that has a little bit of contrast. Seriously, look at how much of the square footage of San Francisco is that bullshit. The Castro, the Inner Sunset, Castro, the Inner Sunset, Castro, the Richmond, Noe Valley. Okay, I'm looking for any of these. I'm not finding it. Just Google Dolores Pike. You Google Dolores Park. Grids, it's all grids. Well, there's nothing necessarily wrong with grids. New York is grids. 2 South now? Okay. There is no Dolores. Chinatown should be walkable in theory. What about Japantown? It's all grids, man! Oh, kind of more of the same, but a hell of a lot cuter, huh? Sorry, I'm getting distracted. We need to finish this debate.
To be able to access housing. I have had seniors come to me and say, I used to not like your housing policies, but my kids just moved to Indiana with my grandkids. I'm not going to see them very much because they had no hope of getting housing here, and I now support your housing policies. So the look and feel of neighborhood, really important.
Yeah, everybody wants their neighborhood to stay exactly the same as it was when they were born until their children get born and can't afford to live there. And then they get priced out because their property taxes go up or something, you know?
It's also important about who's living in that neighborhood.
I'm so tired of the entire Western, mostly the Anglosphere, all policy being dictated by people who are going to die in the next 20 years. Why? They're not the most economically productive. They're not any more politically savvy. They just turn out and vote somewhat more often. Gen Xers vote plenty. So much of our... It's worse than the United Kingdom.
People are getting pushed out and young people see no future. And when you send your kid to school and they have 3 teachers in a year because the teachers can't afford to live there and they're moving, that is a problem. And I think in addition to the look and the feel of the neighborhood, which is important, we have to be talking about people. And our housing shortage is strangling the state. It is strangling our economy. Businesses can't find workers at times because the workers can't afford to live nearby and they're not going to commute for 3 hours. We are falling short of our climate goals because we're forcing people to drive so much because we don't build housing near the jobs or the transit. And it is absolutely spiking poverty. When someone's paying 70% of their paycheck for housing, they are going to be living in poverty. And when we have overcrowded housing, because people have to live together to afford housing, that creates its own problems. So in so many ways, building more housing and doing things differently is really critically important. Understanding that that can be really hard for people, for all of us.
Imelda, given that you've said now that there aren't changes that could get you to support the bill, and you believe Sacramento shouldn't be dictating how Los Angeles builds, and that you acknowledge that this is a crisis that needs
fundamentally conservative rhetoric, by the way. The idea of like, oh, well, we're not going to let the government tell us what to do. What the f are you talking about? Masagui comes back instantly back to Japan posting, you smug piece of shit. Oh, I can take a walk down my preposterously slim staircase and go to a cafe right on the ground floor. My f you, piece of shit.
to be addressed. What, to your mind, is the reason Los Angeles is so far behind in building enough housing for the number of people we have, that we have one of the worst homeless problems of unhoused populations of any city on Earth? What is stopping us from building enough? And why do you think you can solve it without the push from Sacramento?
Great question. So look, I'm not here to defend the past, but I do blame a lot of it on past leaders and past voters as well, right? The folks who elected individuals to make decisions in the past, this is what their preference was, right? Local control is very real in Los Angeles. It's why we have a very strong neighborhood council system. We developed the neighborhood council system to avoid secession from Hollywood and the San Fernando Valley, right? And they did that because they felt like City Hall was not paying attention, specifically on issues related to land use. So we are in a time where we are addressing the ills of the past that were very NIMBY, but I do trust that right now we have a mayor and a council that is a little bit more brave. But I also, in terms of addressing
she's not saying shit, dude.
Housing.
Want to hear something even more annoying? Japan's modern urban planning system was developed by American academics brought in by MacArthur in the 1940s. Fuck, you took it from us! The ability to do dense urban planning is actually like it's like there's an eldritch artifact. There's an SCP that emits the ability to do that, and you took it from us. You know what I bet it was? MacArthur brought it over, and when Truman sacked him, he was like, "F you," and left it with the Japanese. You pieces of shit. I'll never forgive you.
Various types of housing. But here's the thing. This is why I was shocked with the who voted for what with this, right? Because some of the ones that voted to support this bill, in my opinion, did it for the theatrics of looking like progressives, but really in the nitty gritty, not doing the work.
I'm hearing the tension. I'm hearing the tension from the council, and I'm loving it. But
I'm sorry, but when when I'm hosting town halls, focus groups, starting neighborhood watches, so that my district can actually engage, even though we don't have to, because
San Francisco is a more walkable neighborhood than Seattle, by the way. I don't necessarily know how much I can trust this. The problem is that, like, it kind of depends on the neighborhood, right? Like, there are huge parts of San Francisco that are not walkable at all, and huge parts of New York that are basically as walkable as anything ever could be. Like, it's as good as it gets, you know? Like in Seattle's case, I don't know what is it like just the city? Is it like the Seattle-Tacoma area? I don't know what's getting counted. I try to think of it more as like a neighborhood thing, you know? Most of Seattle is average. The Capitol Hill area, like anything from First Hill, like north of that, it's pretty good for walkability. San Francisco has really walkable neighborhoods. obviously when people think walkability in New York, they think like they think of Brooklyn and you know, parts of Brooklyn and parts of Harlem and most of Manhattan, you know. I've never been to Boston. I've always wanted to though. Seattle's nice though, but I don't think it's the most walkable city in America.
A lot of CEQA exemptions given that we're under an emergency order, but I see my council members doing absolutely nothing.
All right. But
With all due respect, but you're going to look like the cool guy or the cool girl because you're supporting SB 79 at the state level. I'm sorry. Get to work and stop siding with state policies that technically would reduce my job description. My job description is to engage with my community about what sort of things they want to see in their neighborhood.
First of all, I'm loving hearing that the cool kids are YIMBY now. That's interesting. But it's not really.
Yeah, that's really straightforward, huh? Don't do policies that get in the way of my job, which is to block housing development.
An answer to my question. I hear you that we are dealing with a failure that is decades old. We should have been building all the way through. We're paying a very heavy price, and it's going to take time to address it.
We really need to pay attention to the community plan process.
But that doesn't explain why we're so far behind in 2024, right? Like
I'm so done with this woman. Okay, look, I'm trying to mix up how I do my content. I have been so like hyper optimizing for segment production for so long that I think it's cooked my brain a little bit. I think I'm learning way the more from this than I ever would have just going through like AP News shit or whatever. We have to do less news. It has to be less news coverage. I don't want to be a pundit, okay? I think I'm learning more. I feel like over the past few years I haven't learned or grown at all in my analysis. It's just been like I'm covering the news stories, which I do fine at, but I want to try to like spread out a little bit.
You're in the council now. Mayor Bass is the mayor. You like Mayor Bass. You're claiming this new leadership is going to solve it. We're still only doing a third of the number of permits we need last year.
But Bosch the views? No, I know. I mean, that's like a trade-off, right? But I did pretty well back when I was like that 4 years ago. So I don't know. It's kind of like the trap of falling into the comfortable routine a little bit, like what I always talk about in terms of physical fitness or your social routine or anything like that. You always have to be a little bit dynamic in how you engage with stuff.
Meet the housing goal. So is that not something you're responsible for? Are other people at fault for why we're so far behind in permits? Are you on track in your district for permits?
That's a great question, and I don't think that we're going to be able to unpackage that answer in this short interview.
Are your views low doing this now? It has been one day of me trying to change my mindset on this after a big stream yesterday. So I don't really have any numbers to get back to you on at the moment.
Because then there is other themes, right? There's then we approve something, but then they have to go get the financing, right? And then we approve something, and then there's a lot of other bureaucracy related to, oh, there's a sanitation issue before you can build, right? Or there's a this issue and a that issue. So there's definitely things that we still need to do in order to make sure that once we approve, we actually start the construction. But again, this is also very new and part of this generation. So I think we're getting there. And it is definitely within my vision that if the voters allow me to be here for the total of 12 years.
Oh yeah, YouTube chat, are you appreciating the fact that I got rid of the 30-second chat timer? I completely forgot that was there. Sorry.
It's gonna be a very different neighborhood compared to when I first got here, because I'm very intentional, like I said, about making sure that we address this.
Last word over to you.
Should I bring it down more? Should I bring it to like
this?
5 seconds?
What is your response to the point that local leaders are moving forward? It's just taking time. And just to close it out, for people that aren't from California, for people who see this in the context of this broader abundance debate, what do you hope people
Let us emote. I'm probably going to add channel memberships soon, by the way. You know, like the thing, it's subscribing. Like it's like subbing on Twitch, you know? I'm probably going to add those soon and like bundle a bunch of emotes in there so that you guys can. I need to find out how I'm going to package it, but you know, I think it's fair. What do we get though? You get the satisfaction of financially supporting me, your favorite content creator. Also, you can post funny frogs.
Away from this debate and this bill.
First of all, I think that having a state-local partnership is
Please never do members only shit. That's the only way to do it on YouTube. On YouTube chat, if you want to give people emotes, like there are emotes they can use by default, but if you want to give them custom emotes, it has to be in the form of membership. Also, it's my job. Also, it's just funny frogs. Also, I like money.
important. And I have never been of the view, like when I have these conversations, as I'm in my 9th year in the Senate, and so we've been talking about this from the state perspective for quite some time. I go out of my way not to demonize local elected officials. As a former local elected official, I know how hard it is and how hard local elected officials work. And I know the council member works extremely hard to do right by her community, and I admire that. And there has to be a partnership, and it's a balance, right? I don't want complete state control. But I do think the state.
This guy should be so much less civil.
Needs to set standards, and I'm also a council member, a strong supporter of good investment in infrastructure, and I want to help cities invest in that. But I do want to just say that this is really about. We have had such a broken system for a long time, and I know at the local and state level, a lot of people are working to fix it. It was a system where we methodically decided not to zone for enough housing.
You know what I love? I love the fact that he's wearing a tie. No one wears ties anymore, man. I love that he got up there in the chair and he put his shirt on. He buttoned it up proper and he got the tie on. I think he looks nice.
Down zone and ban apartment buildings and say you're only allowed to build single family homes. And then we set up a permitting system where instead of doing things in a good government way, which is to set the rules ahead of time, and then if you check the boxes and meet the rules, you get your permit immediately. We decided that meeting all the rules just qualified you to go into the political mosh pit for every single permit. And so we've seen housing that's compliant with all the local rules get caught up in a 5 or 10-year process or get mutilated or killed. And that's government at its worst, and it's helped get us into this crisis. Huh. And the ramifications are the ones I talked about earlier, 3 teachers in a year for your kid, people getting pushed out, and so on and so forth. It's also, in terms of when we look at the broad politics of this country right now, that in the next census, and there was an amazing piece by Jerusalem Demsis called "The Democrats Are Committing Parricide," that because blue states have done such a poor job building housing, whereas red states have been building a lot of housing. And so we're seeing a population shift from California, New York, and Illinois to places like Texas and Florida, North Carolina. In the next census, we are projected to lose the big blue states about 10 seats in the House of Representatives.
Remember a couple of months ago when we saw that weird group of Chinatown NIMBYs in New York City who were really, really, really adamant on no more development in that neighborhood? I don't know. I'm just thinking about it.
To the red states. And that means 10 votes in the Electoral College. And that means had Kamala Harris won the blue wall states, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, that would not have been enough to win the presidency. So we're strangling our economy. We are also moving ourselves into a situation of just us being in the structural minority as blue states, with all of the horrors that we're seeing in this administration becoming long-term. So we have a lot of work to do, and I look forward to that partnership to get it done.
Councilmember Imelda Padilla, thank you so much for taking time. I do really genuinely appreciate you coming on, because it was a little bit of 2 against 1, because
she didn't issue a single coherent defense of her position the entire time.
Really believe this is ultimately the right thing, but I do genuinely want to understand what the perspective is of someone who opposes it, in part because I think we need to address those to get enough people on board to get behind it if it's not going to be stopped. And Senator Scott Wiener, thank you so much for your time as well. And for everybody listening, do us a favor, please follow this channel, subscribe to this channel. Also, reply below with your
like and subscribe. She was proud to get more parking lots and less housing. The up thing is that I think to a lot of more socially centrist but economically on the nose liberals, they would perceive her to be a progressive force. Like, she's the person who's striking down the greedy fat cats in the construction industry. She's the person who's preserving the neighborhood, cultural legacy and heritage. A lot of stuff that kind of sounds like adjacent to being left, but isn't. I don't know.